Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto trains himself after Kakashi refuses to train him part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button, check description and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Just a forewarning. After the lunch break, Naruto found a way to do the triangle, albeit with both hands. One of his clones decided to do it another way, and when it popped, Naruto got it down as well. Shaping all angles in the most uneven triangle made out of pure dirt, Naruto completed the chakra control exercise, which he was honestly proud of. His teacher, Ebisu, congratulated him on a job well done, but said it wasn't enough for now. He decided to tell Naruto to try it again, this time with one hand, to which annoyed Naruto but he didn't voice his opinion. Instead he let it go, and focused on the task again. That earned him an earnest pat on his shoulder, as Ebisu-sensei watched his progress at a distance. Much to Naruto's credit, he found the solution the task Ebisu gave him with making the triangle one-handed a day and a half. It was hard definitely, but he managed to shape his chakra in 3 angles. The advice his teacher gave him was somewhat helpful. Naruto, admittedly, had a problem when it came to thinking too hard on the exercise. Instead of simply trying it, he was too busy thinking he had to do it fast. Ebisu-sensei asked him to simply imagine a triangle being made over and over. He also asked Naruto to stop thinking about how fast to shape the chakra as well. This is simply you learning how to shape it right now. If anything, we shall work on the speed another time. Just do it, not think about how fast how to do it. After a while after the advice, he gotten it down, and he was relieved. Then sensei decided to make it more specific, and asked him to make a triangle with all equal angles. It took another few minutes to get it down, but he got it, and he thought honestly he was ready to move on to something else much more interesting. Ebisu agreed, and just when Naruto thought he was out of the shape-making department, Ebisu grabbed some dirt of his own. Here's your next task. Ebisu concentrated on his right palm, and shaped the dirt instantaneously into a rectangle. You're going to shape it this time to a rectangle. It shouldn't be hard now that you know how to make angles. Naruto muffled any sort of screams of protest, and nodded jadedly, working on the task. Interestingly enough, like sensei said, Naruto gotten it relatively fast. In a few minutes, using the same strategy as before, he gotten the square exercise down quickly. Perfect. Ebisu smiled. You are starting to get it. Is there more to this than making basic shapes? Naruto asked, trying not to voice his frustration. Ebisu could sense it however. Patience, Naruto-kun. There is much more to this technique than shaping, like making it larger or smaller, but that's a task for another day. Preferably after the Chunin exams. The techniques I will show you does not have to do with size changing. Now, cut the link between the chakra shaping the dirt, and return it back to how had it before when you first gathered the dirt. Naruto paused, and concentrated again, this time, slowly, bringing the dirt down and making it shapeless. What's next? Make a perfect square. It's like making the perfect triangle. Work slowly, and imagine it. Naruto nodded, and closed his eyes in thought, focusing on the imagine of a triangle, finding his chakra working for himself, and creating the shape in another minute. Ebisu smiled again, excellent. Alright, we're going to finally do some much more complicated. I warn you, this will take a little longer. Instead of making a triangle or square, or any shape with angles, I want you to make a perfect circle. Shouldn't be that bad. Ebisu shrugged. A lopsided grin appeared on his face. I warned you. And his teacher did. For a little while, it truly did stump him. Unlike the specific angles the triangle and square asked for, a circle was much different, lacking any sort of thing like that. At first, Naruto unconsciously tried shaping in one direction, but it got something akin to a normal straight angle, and failed. He wanted to ask his teacher for advice, but he stopped and decided to not rely on the man and figure it out himself. Just like the triangle and square, he tried to think what made a circle in his head, letting the dirt sit in his hand. A circle lacked angles and lines, unlike a triangle or square. So in order to do it, he couldn't make it straight. I have to turn my chakra. It was the conclusion he came to. Eyes still closed, and making sure to focus hard on this one, he raised one palm over the dirt, fed the chakra, and started circling his hand over the dirt, moving slowly. Anchoring his chakra in his other hand where he held the dirt in to keep it all together, he decided to use his left hand to turn the dirt. He wasn't adept at using it in the same palm he held the dirt in, so he tried with two hands. His chakra responded, and moved as he circled his hand over the soil. In the middle of it all, he opened his eyes, and saw his work, and smiled a little at it. Unfortunately, even as slowly as he went, he ended up not making the circle shape perfect, and the ending part of chakra-saturated dirt didn't connect with the beginning part, creating some sort of weird, incomplete shape. Still Ebisu looked pleased, beaming in his direction and clapping his hands. Very good. Yes. You are starting to get it. Yes. Yes. Very good indeed. Naruto looked vaguely amused, smiling slightly. Even if I failed. Ebisu waved at him offhandedly. Minor details. This is an admittedly difficult task I'm giving you. You know the basics of utilizing your earth chakra, and the basics of shape transformation. You now know how to shape your earth chakra certain ways, and this now will help you learn some ninjutsu. You're quite not on the level yet to form weaponry out of your element yet, but you're getting there. So, wait, are you going to show me how to change the properties of dirt to stone? Yes. Ebisu nodded. It's simply, really, to harden it to stone, after shaping whatever you want, simply add more chakra and compress it tightly together. If you want to turn stone to soil, you use your chakra, spread it around to loosen the stone, and turn it into soil. I suppose it's easier for you to see it, instead of me telling you. Naruto nodded at that. Yes, please. Explanations only went so far with him. The blonde didn't learn like that. He had to see it performed, and actually do it in order to learn it. Theory was never his strong suit. Ebisu grunted in affirmation, gathered dirt into his hand, and started shaping the soil into a round orb. Then he compacted the earthen material and created a hard rock. Then, he messed with the object in his hands again, and it turned softer and softer until it became a round dirt ball again. To compress your chakra, imagine taking all of your chakra, and squeeze it together, like you're squeezing something tightly. Try it. You can make any shape you please. Naruto did, dropping the weird shape in his hand, turning the dirt lumpy again, and made a shape. The shape he chose for his task was a triangle, as he edged the soil with his chakra, and created the triangle. Then, he attempted to pack his chakra tightly together, but it was easier said than done and found his chakra not exactly responding to his wishes. After another half hour, it was around 4, and Ebisu told him to stop, and take a short 15-minute break. Naruto sighed, and went towards a spot near his teacher under a shade tree, wiping some sweat off his brow. Naruto brought forth a green canteen of water. The water was kind of warm, but Naruto drank up the liquid all the same, and felt some of annoyance for today wash away. A bit more sweeping of the sweat off his forehead, and the blonde-haired Uzumaki felt a little better. Naruto found no newer progress, to which irritated him. However, he promised himself to not complain so much about it, and just kept it to himself. Ebisu patted him on the shoulder. You are doing an excellent job so far, Naruto. You have gotten down quite a bit in these last few days. I am sure you will learn this by the end of this month of training. Naruto appreciated the encouraging words, smiling at the Jonin standing at his side under the tree. Thanks, sensei. Just a little frustrated, is all. I'll definitely get this down. Very good. Alright, the next thing we will do is do something you will find a little more interesting. Although it's not ninjutsu. Naruto slightly deflated. The thought of getting to something other than making shapes with dirt was exciting, and he first thought it would be something practical, like ninjutsu. It seems like he was wrong. We shall get to it soon. Instead of ninjutsu, I will teach you how to actively use your element in close quarters combat, increasing your strength temporarily. What? The boy questioned, much interested again in what his teacher would be teaching him next. Chakra flow. This is the basics of chakra flow. Basically, this is a type of exercise that requires a substantial amount of chakra control. You are flowing chakra through certain objects like weaponry or ordinary objects. Ebisu grabbed out a kunai out his back pouch, and channeled chakra through the metal. An aura cloaked the metal in a visible blue. Chakra flow, non-elemental, can last in objects for a very long time. However, it can get more complicated when adding an element into it due to the volatility of all elements. Ebisu then paused again, before Naruto watched the aura's blue turn red and flaming. Naruto whistled, finding the process fascinating. That's so cool, Datbeo. Ebisu nodded. However, remember, this is all about controlling your chakra. If you cannot control it, you can end up doing damage to yourself, and that is never a good thing. An element as volatile as fire can end up you getting burned if you do something wrong. Each element can do some sort of harm to you or the object you are flowing chakra inside of. So what does Earth do if you have no control? I will show you. Ebisu stopped his fire chakra flow technique, and returned his hands to a normal state. Grabbing the kunai with his left hand, Ebisu activated his chakra again, converted it to Earth release chakra, and the kunai had an aura of particles of earth surrounding the metal blade. This is the correct version of the technique, the right amount of chakra flowing through an object. However, the wrong amount. Ebisu then did something to make the metal blade darken, and darken until it almost became black, and Ebisu looked a little strained, like it became much harder to keep the weapon up in one hand. The item has become significantly heavier and much more denser, much like a rock. For a weapon, unless this is your intention, never do what I have done. Ebisu then flexed his hand, and dropped the flow of chakra, turning the weapon back. Naruto watched it, and saw big dents now in the metal, dents that were not there before. What happened? Too much earth chakra warped the metal into this state. The wrong amount of chakra will break the weapon and make it useless. Some weapons are more suited to channel this chakra, admittedly, but they too will strain under the force of your chakra if you use too much. And too little won't wield the results you want, right? Too little, and the chakra won't stand for a few seconds before dissipating. Ebisu responded, dropping the useless kunai in his hand to the ground. Thus, you must find enough to place in the item. Naturally, the size matters in this case. Small item requires a small amount chakra, and a large item demands a large amount of chakra. All of this is about chakra control, Of course, you will find many of these exercises even increase your control. All this is to make you feel your chakra better. Have you not felt like it was easier to mold your chakra these days for any technique outside this exercises? Take a second, and use a ninjutsu now. Use a kawarimi on this kunai I have on the floor. Ebisu cleared the way so Naruto could have plenty of space to perform the technique Ebisu asked him to use. Naruto stared at his item intensely, and thought back to the amount of chakra he usually used to perform the kawarimi. Clapping his hands, Naruto generated the chakra in his body, and then started contorting his fingers into hand seal shape. Tiger to boar, then boar to ox, then ox to dog, and finally finishing off with snake. Naruto succeeded in using the technique, and shifted places with the kunai. The kunai bounced for a second before dropping down uselessly, and Naruto found that he had used quite a bit of his chakra. It wasn't the most huge amount, but he felt it. Days of working with the smallest amount of chakra he could use made him more sensitive to it. How did it feel? Ebisu asked the teenage. I felt like I used a lot of chakra than I intended to. Ebisu nodded, as he was confirming something. Alright, now, I want you to try it again. This time, use the most minuscule amount of chakra you can muster on it. Naruto nodded, again looking over to the discarded kunai, and generated his chakra again with a soundless clap, before performing the necessary seals again. He tried his best to generate the absolute smallest amount of chakra he possibly could, and performed the Kawarimi no Jutsu again. He shifted places with the kunai, which dropped down to the ground in its original place, where Ebisu dropped it 2 minutes ago. This time, his chakra felt like it hadn't depleted at all. Almost like it was a small, not easily noticeable tug of his chakra. It was many times weaker than what he used regularly when performing the Kawarimi on objects, people, or his clones. Yet, he had done it. It almost felt amazing, like he was waking up for the first time, or he learned something crucial in his life. He was starting to understand why these damnable chakra control exercises held merit. The more chakra he could use in battle or in a fight at his disposal, the better it was. No more wasting so much chakra using techniques. That was why the Kage Bunshin was so good for him. Instead of worrying chakra control, the clone technique automatic splitting of his chakra evenly helped him save chakra. While Kakashi sensei had already said to him that his reserve of chakra was massive, even larger than the Sandaime Hokage himself. However, that didn't mean it was infinite, and Naruto had felt his chakra amount get quite low before. Not like he's ever been in a fight when he had to worry about that, but it still took quite a few days for him to retain back that lost portion of his chakra again. It felt amazing. Ebisu smiled, watching Naruto's eyes widen from his space across the training grounds. Noticed something interesting. That didn't feel like it cost so much anymore. Yes, your control of your chakra has become much better. You now know how to not only shape and make your chakra move in ways you want it to move, you also know how to much chakra to use in some of your techniques. I believe you can use even less chakra than what you used, due to how huge your chakra amount is, and how large your chakra pools are. Thus, Naruto figured, he was perfect for using the art of ninjutsu, which made Naruto absolutely giddy. He got this all down in a few weeks. In a few weeks, who knows what he could do now? The possibilities were endless. This is awesome, sensei. I feel great. I'm ready for anything you throw at me. I can do it. I have little doubt whatever task I give you, you will not try your hardest in. Naruto's enthusiasm rubbed off on Ebisu a large amount. We will do the chakra flow exercise. I shall give you a bit of kunai and shuriken to experiment on. Originally, this was my final exercise for you, but I thought of something much more difficult for you when it comes to making shapes. So, after this, more shaping exercises, and practicing compressing and expanding your chakra, we shall finally get to ninjutsu. Right. Naruto nodded, accepting the 3 kunai Ebisu gave him. Putting down 2 of the kunai, Naruto then summoned 3 shadow clones, without hand seals, a new crowning achievement Naruto was proud of recently discovering. In doing this, the 1 kunai in Naruto's hand became 3 for 3 blonde boys to work on, making a total of 5. The awesome effect of the Kage Bunshin was whatever the user had on their person was whatever the clones had as well. More tools could be made, and the perfect thing was, each of the clones had their own weaponry to work with. Naruto grinned in excitement. There was no stopping him when he was charged like this. He was definitely going to kick in the Chunin exams. Naruto laid down, his body aching, and his muscles weak. His arms were sore, and he felt like he ran a triathlon with his legs. Tomorrow was resting day for him, so that would be good for him. A day to rest his aching muscles. So tomorrow, he would be doing something not pertaining to training. He had made quite a good bit of progress in only 2 weeks, it was all thanks to Ebisu sensei. After several days of the man actually devoting his time to teach him, Naruto had to admit he was starting to warm up to Ebisu. Someone who he lumped up to be just like everyone else, people who disliked him just because of his bad circumstance, the title, sensei, for Ebisu was said less mockingly, and more respectfully as he learned from Ebisu. Now, it even wasn't that annoying taking orders from him. The man always was there to teach him, and help him with a technique Naruto had trouble with. Even if Ebisu was only here by Kakashi sensei's instruction, the man had brought him up to speed about a lot of things. He even taught Naruto more than he ever learned from Kakashi-sensei. It helped also that Ebisu taught him something as cool and useful as his elemental affinity. At first, Naruto wasn't as stellar to hear that his element was earth. He was half expecting either fire release or lightning release to be his affinity. Instead, earth release was his affinity. It wasn't anything he was expecting. When he was first mastering how to use earth chakra, he kept thinking one thing: what did earth release techniques have to offer in terms of strength and usefulness? The answer: a lot. Earth release was by nature an equally offensive nature as it was defensive. According to his teacher Ebisu, earth release techniques could break the strongest of rock, and also form a powerful shield able to withstand the strongest of elemental and non-elemental techniques. Ergo, it was just as strong as it was durable, and Naruto could get behind that. Naruto liked versatility quite a bit, which is why the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was his favorite. It was just tailored for him. He could make many of clones, and not even break a sweat. Now, he was learning from Ebisu, and that little Kawarimi exercise, he was finally getting why it was better to conserve chakra. His chakra was huge. Sensei stated his chakra pools were extremely larger than his, and of anyone in this entire village. Naruto had chalked that up before as a sign to just simply being able to spam his shadow clones for his heart's content, but it was more than that. Because of his large pools of chakra, he could learn a ton of techniques and utilize them for a long time. Ninjutsu, therefore, was his forte, and he, like how he was doing with the Kage Bunshin now, could, and would, abuse the shit out of it. Naruto learned a Jonin level ninjutsu easily before, so what stopped him from picking up more? Not a damn thing. Ebisu sensei looked ready to teach him ninjutsu any day now. Perhaps when he got down the true basics of chakra flow. It didn't really seem all that hard. All this time, his teacher was getting Naruto to work diligently on his chakra control, so he wouldn't be wasting a shitload of chakra every time he called upon chakra for a technique, so chakra flow wouldn't take that long to learn. Naruto couldn't help it. He was super giddy. Neji was getting his kicked when Naruto sees him in battle, and that extended to any potential opponent in the exams. Count on it. But that wasn't the real reason why the blonde boy was having trouble sleeping. No, another crucial thing, even bigger than the pleasure of knowing the key to kicking Neji's, was keeping him awake, thinking about it. Kakashi-sensei's question was again playing in his head. Every few days, he would go to sleep thinking about it, especially on restless nights like this. What is the point of these exams, Naruto? Think about it. He tried to think of the reason to himself, in the days he wasn't trying or in his relaxation time. So far, he hadn't figured it out. Granted, he was busy with other things in his time, and the only time he could think about it was either on days off or when he was restless at night. Since he usually slept like a rock after training, that hadn't been many times when he was restless. So, what was the point of these exams? To become Chunin, right? That was the namesake of the exams. But, was there a secret thing beyond it? How could you become a Chunin if you didn't have a sizable amount of techniques at your disposal? How could you be a Chunin if you didn't have advanced techniques? At first, that's what Naruto thought, that all you had to have. Just beat everyone in your way, and you would be able to become a Chunin, but now that he thought more deeply about it, that didn't make sense. So let's say he beat everyone in the tournament, did that mean him, and maybe the runner-up of the exams would become a Chunin? That made little to no sense. It was strange to him to think of it in terms of math, but it helped quite a bit with the mystery. Thinking of it mathematically, if that statement above was true, about only the winner of the tournament and the runner-up were able to become Chunin, and the tournament only took place twice a year, that meant only 4 Genin-ranked ninja in the entire village were able to gain a Chunin promotion. That didn't make sense. If that was the case, then the village's ninja force would be pathetically small, and Naruto knew for a fact that that was not the case. Konohagakure was known for its extremely huge population, a population that eclipsed all of villages on the continent, to be exact. Konohagakure had a large bulk of capable genin, chunin, and jonin. Naruto couldn't even count how many new faces he's seen around the village. The village itself stretched out for miles. It was huge, even to 13-year-old Naruto Uzumaki. So how could 4 people of the village be chosen to become chunin of the village? It made no sense at all. So it definitely had to be more than just having the power to kick everyone's butt in the exams. He thought back to what Ebisu-sensei said a time 2 weeks ago as a guideline. Just because you have the fighting skills of a chunin, doesn't mean you actually deserve becoming a chunin. Everybody has the potential to become a chunin in the exams, but that doesn't mean they all can become one. The exams is much more than fighting. In order to become a chunin, you must act like one, and think like one. Thus, you must know what it is to be chunin. Sometimes, there's more than one way than surviving a fight. So, you could be chunin level in terms of strength and power, yet, that didn't mean you deserved to be one, right? Power didn't mean anything if you weren't responsible with it, he learned a while ago. In order to become chunin, you had to act like one. Think like one. Then, you can become one. So strength and techniques meant nothing if he couldn't think like one. He could try the exams many times if he wanted, but if he couldn't think like one, then he wouldn't be promoted to a chunin. But how did you think like one? Naruto didn't have the slightest clue, and seeing how several of the shinobi he knew, who knew about Kakashi-sensei's question was very privy about the information. They were very stingy with the knowledge. No, stingy wasn't the right word. They just didn't want to give him the answer. They wanted him to figure it out himself, but he could not, so he had to find someone else who could and was willing to give him that information he needed. They wanted him to think like a chunin. Since he lacked the knowledge, he should seek it out, right? Find the knowledge himself, instead of just asking people who didn't want to exactly give him the information. However, it had to be from a source or someone who didn't have a clue of the question Kakashi asked, like the Hokage and Ebisu. With only one person in mind, Naruto smiled, figuring it out what to do. Time to see Iruka-sensei again. The next day, it was evening time, and the sky's orange and purple was reflecting on such. It had been such a long day, a long, grueling day of one headache that just would not go away. Iruka Yumino had just gotten out of the academy, finishing his lesson. His head hurt so much, he was almost digging his index fingers in his temples to get rid of the pain. Today was long and tiring for the academy teacher. Dealing with a notorious troublemaker all day, Konohamaru Sarutobi, Iruka was ready to enjoy his evening at home. The boy had taken up pranking ever since he joined the village's ninja academy, and it was really starting to get on his nerves. As was it for the other teachers in the ninja academy. Putting glue on his homeroom teacher's chair so he stuck to his seat after he sat down. Leaving smoke bombs to explode in the men's room dedicated solely to the teachers. It was all very annoying. Much to his amusement, however, Konohamaru's pranks reminded him of a certain former blonde boy student of his, especially in the nature of them. Still, Iruka, after a long day at work, was ready to go home, relax, and read his favorite book. Or he was, until he ran into last year's troublemaker, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto greeted him boisterous with a shout across the academy's schoolyard. Yo, Iruka-sensei, sup? Iruka shook his head in amusement, thinking, speak of the devil. Hello Naruto. He walked up to the boy, ruffing the blonde's hair. Seeing the boy's immediate pout, Iruka couldn't help but to chuckle. Naruto had a small gripe with people tugging with his hair. A pet peeve Iruka knew all too well, and frankly, abused. Still, the chunin was pleasantly surprised to see the yellow-haired genin. It had been quite some time since he last seen Naruto. He wondered how his little friend was doing. Even if his headache would probably persist being in Naruto's presence. Naruto. It's been a while since I last seen you. What are you doing with your time? Nothing much, sensei. Naruto placed his arms behind his head, grinning up at his former academy teacher. I'm really just training hard these days. I'm in the semifinals in the Chunin exams. You know that, right? Uruka nodded. I know. I must say, I'm impressed. Looks like you got your work cut out for you. You have to fight Neji Hyuga, after all. He graduated from the academy as the Rookie of the Year, and is hailed to be quite the formidable genin in the village. Naruto's smile dimmed. Yeah, I know. I'm still pretty sure I can kick his. Naruto clenched his fist. I've been working 10 times harder than I ever have just to kick his this upcoming month. Uruka smiled encouragingly. I know. You can do it, Naruto. I believe in you. Naruto grinned. It always felt nice to hear that from his former teacher. So, hey, are you busy? The ponytail-wearing teacher shook his head. Looks like going home would have to wait. I'm off now. I'm guessing you want to eat ramen on a few hours. The blonde paused for a second, to actually think it over before nodding. That's cool, I guess, but originally, that wasn't what I was here for. Uruka rose an eyebrow for a second. The boy wasn't here for food. Naruto, even when he was a genin, took it upon himself to go and mooch off Uruka from time to time, and getting him to buy him some lunch or dinner. What's up then? I have a question, Uruka-sensei, and I thought, hey, since you're a Chunin, you can probably my question. Naruto explained. Naruto looked, quite uncharacteristically, stoic and ready to talk business. What's your question, sensei? What is like to be a Chunin? Uruka's eyebrow rose once again. Like, what are your responsibilities as a Chunin and what's the difference between Chunin and Genin? Well, Uruka put a finger on his chin, taken aback somewhat. Naruto never seemed all that interested in ranks before. The only rank the blonde-haired boy was really gunning for was Hokage. That's actually a pretty astute question, Naruto. What brought this on? Naruto bit his lip, wondering if telling Uruka-sensei the whole truth would get him the answers he needed. Ebisu-sensei said that just because I beat Neji doesn't mean I'm guaranteed a promotion. Ebisu. That's your sensei for the month. Uruka was confused. Shouldn't Naruto's assigned Jonin-sensei be supervising his training? What happened to Kakashi-san? Naruto frowned slightly. He's training Sasuke. Uruka nodded slowly, knowing the frown was a sign of irritation from the boy. He could see it on the youngster's face. Naruto then changed the subject, continuing the conversation. So yeah, I'm wondering how can that be? How can I beat Neji, and everyone else, yet not be allowed to become Chunin? Is Ebisu-sensei telling the truth or is he yanking my chain? Uruka chuckled sagely, giving Naruto the distinction that Uruka was going to give him quite the long answer. Well, Ebisu-san is right. You can win the entire tournament, but that doesn't mean you're Chunin material. Let me tell you a small story, Naruto. I had some sort of a rival at my second Chunin tournament. His name was Django. He was a powerful genin for his age, and won the entire tournament. I even lost to him, and I had been a genin much longer than him. In my match, I almost had him 3 times in a row. Thanks to his bloodline, however, he was able to withstand my attacks, before I forfeited. I was still one of the genin in the Chunin exams promotion ceremony rewarded a flak jacket, an honor he never received. Do you know why? Naruto shook his head, allowing his teacher to say the answer. Because I actually used my head. I had him on the ropes several times, and I showed that I had the ability to defeat him, even with his Kekai Genkai. While he relied solely on the Kekai Genkai, I used trickery, misdirection, and deceit to fight him. I fought like a Chunin. I thought like one. He instead fought like he had to win at all costs, and nothing else mattered. He even almost picked a fight with the proctor after I backed down because I decided to forfeit. So the exams is about fighting and thinking like a Chunin. How can I do that? It's all about aptitude, Naruto. You must show that you have the aptitude to become one. You must think ahead, plan ahead, fight intelligently, and know your limits. The difference between a Chunin and a genin is this: responsibility. Chunin are the starting representatives for the village. Genin aren't. They follow their Jonin instructors until they make the next rank. To think like a Chunin, You have to use your brain. Do you know the most powerful weapon a ninja can have? Naruto thought for a second, and answered, remembering a lesson he actually listened to Iruka sensei say before. One he would, for now on, take to heart. The most powerful weapon a ninja could have is their mind. Iruka nodded, that's right. Nothing else. A person could have the strongest techniques in the world. However, if their enemy knows exactly how to counter it, it means nothing. This can be applied to everything. Fighting, sparring, and especially missions. No one wants an idiot on a mission with them, or an incompetent ninja messing up something on it. What if this mission has great importance and that person screws up everything? It could not only end up bad for the people on the mission, but for the entire village as well. We're looking for people to lead the youth, not make it worse for them. Iruka gave Naruto a serious look. Chunin are sent on missions outside of the village, and often, have missions up to B rank, unlike the D or the uncommon C rank missions we have genin go on. How can you be promoted if you don't show you have the responsibility to carry out missions far away from home? Remember what I told you a long time ago, Naruto. It was a pretty important lesson in class. Naruto rolled his eyes. Sensei, I barely was in your classes most of the time. I can't recall any of these so-called important lessons. Naruto, rightfully so, was hit on his head. Ouch. Sensei, I was kidding. You idiot. You know damn well you weren't kidding. Iruka growled out. However, the older man calmed down and huffed. Sometimes, Naruto, you make someone want to sock you in your teeth sometimes. He, you still love me though, sensei. Iruka shook his head. What am I going to do with you, Naruto? He regained his composure, clearing his throat. The structure of a village's shinobi system, do you remember it? Re-jog your memory. Naruto raised an eyebrow, wondering why his teacher was asking such an easy question. Of course, Iruka-sensei. The structure of the village is all based on ninja rank. Genin, Chunin, Jonin, Kage. Rank-wise, the Kage is on top of the pecking order, and Genin are on the bottom, right? Iruka nodded. There's a reason for that. Rank is important, and it holds a title and a responsibility. Genin lead villagers. Chunin lead Genin and the villagers. Jonin lead everyone under them. Finally, a Kage leads all in the village. Each title represents something. The brown-haired Chunin folded his arms. The word, Genin, is equivalent to the word, potential. Then, Chunin represents responsibility, then Jonin represents wisdom, and finally, Kage represents ruler, for obvious reasons. You are at the Genin stage. You have the potential to do anything you want to do. Everybody around your age does. When you started out in the academy, you were still a villager, you were at a blank slate. Now that you've been Genin for a few months, you paved your own way to what you want to do in life. Thus, potential. So, if I'm at the stage of potential, how do I get to the next level? Naruto asked. The next rank requires something else. Now, you need to be responsible. You need to show you're competent for the job. You need to show you have aptitude in what you do. You need to show that you're best at what you do, and you only. This goes for the exams as well. So wait, the Chunin exams are nothing but show-off contests, talent contests. Naruto said thoughtfully. Iruka paused, but nodded. In a way, yeah. Think about it. The first stage tested your mind, the second tested your body, and now, the third stage is testing both. In all of those tests, you have people watching you. Watching your skills, watching how you act. You need to show you can think and fight at the same time. You need to show what you can do. Matches are nothing more than to give you a chance to display your skills. The more matches you have, the more you can show off your skills, but you don't need to actually win your first fight in order to become a Chunin. It's basically a free get of jail card for any match you lose. So as long as you show what you can do, you'll pass. Holy crap, Naruto uttered, widening his eyes in realization. The answer to Kakashi sensei's question was there all along. I just got to show off all my stuff. Naruto loudly finished with a large smile. A little too excitable for Iruka's tastes. You also need to know your limits, Naruto. Iruka emphasized, a small frown on his face. Naruto was a hardworking shinobi, but Iruka knew that the boy could go overboard sometimes. Remember that as well. Responsibility entails using your skills in the right way, not overstepping your boundaries. We don't need more cannon fodder ninja in battle who die because they didn't know when to stop. Since every ninja adhere to their leader's orders, you must be ready to do the same. When you know you can't do much else, you stop. When we tell you to stop, you stop. Naruto nodded, digesting all of his information. Okay, I get it now. So in order for me to become a Chunin, I have to show that I can think and fight like one. Show my strengths, outthink my opponent, fight hard but know my limits. Okay, I think I got it. Good. Iruka nodded back, grinning at his former student. I think you got this as well. Thanks Iruka-sensei. No problem. Iruka smiled at his former student. He then rubbed his head, in a sheepish manner. You know, I'm actually surprised you came to see me. Naruto looked at the older man, confused. Why wouldn't I? You were the best person to come to. You're a Chunin. I knew you for a long time now, you have experience being one, and you were willing to tell me the answer to my question. The brown-haired man chuckled, shaking his head. I didn't tell you the answer. You figured it out on your own with the information I provided. Another thing about being a Chunin. You were responsible and honest enough to know that your knowledge about the exams was lacking, so you sought out a source that can help you out with finding the answer. If I didn't do it, you would have just went to a library, and found the book that has the answer to your question inside it. Iruka patted Naruto's shoulder. You're thinking like a Chunin now. Good job. I think you'll do fine in the exams in 2 weeks. Naruto beamed up at his teacher, older brother figure. Thanks, Iruka-sensei. You're the best. So I'm told. Iruka grinned back at his former student. Now, how about some ramen since you're here? Okay, sensei, but I'm paying since you helped me. Surprised again by his former student, Iruka shrugged off his shock and decided on putting on a smile. Lead the way. After discovering what he had to do in order to get promoted after the Chunin exams, Naruto continued his training with Ebisu with a new vigor. When he told his teacher the answer to Kakashi Hataki's question, Ebisu smiled and gave him a pat on the shoulder. 3 days later, after training more and more with mastering the basics of using his earth-attuned chakra, Ebisu had finally announced to Naruto that they were starting on learning ninjutsu. This came to Naruto's joy as he grinned excitedly. The blonde-haired teen wanted to jump around and cheer boisterous, but contained it, and let the man instruct him on the first technique he was going to learn. Today, we are going to work on a technique that I believe you will find not only invaluable in your battle against Neji Hyuga, but in your entire career as well. This earth release technique is a very popularly used one, and has great application in combat. Today, I will teach you the Doden, Mogaragakure no Jutsu. Ebisu then closed his eyes in concentration, before using his chakra, and seeping it into the ground. Naruto didn't see or sense it, but got the idea of what was happening when Ebisu started sinking into the ground. Like Naruto had learned before, Ebisu was changing the properties of the ground from soft dirt, to even softer dirt, and then sunk into it, creating a hole. Ebisu disappeared into the ground, leaving Naruto by himself. Then interestingly enough, the dirt hole his temporary teacher left, patched itself back up. It was something interesting to Naruto indeed. Not a thing or shred of evidence Ebisu-sensei ever being where he once stood, was left. After some time, Naruto didn't hear anything. Nothing at all. He was thinking the man would be digging underground after seeing his little demonstration, but Naruto didn't see the man come back up the surface. Then Naruto was scared out of his wits when Ebisu tapped his shoulder from behind, jumping up comically. Geez, sensei. A little warning next time. The man shook his head, chuckling. Afraid? Naruto-kun. Yes, this is the technique. Can you tell me what you have observed from it? Naruto calmed down, and shrugged. Sure. It seems like you used your chakra to turn the dirt softer and went underground. I'm guessing you also spread your chakra underground, and turned it soft enough so you can dig through it. There's no way you could have dug simply with your hands. It would take too long to dig through all that crap without chakra. Ah, yes. The first part of my demonstration, admittedly, that is not quite the part of the technique, but you have gotten the gist of the technique itself. I use my chakra to make the soil under turn into a fine sand, and move through it, digging much like a mole would. Hence the name of the technique. So, yes, I used my chakra to turn it softer and softer as I actively moved through the earth. Naruto frowned slightly in thought. So, how do you exactly know where you're going with this technique? It wouldn't be useful of a technique if you're digging underground blind. Ebisu grinned, satisfied. Naruto asked the question. I shall show you again. Naruto-kun, I want you to move around to a random location in this training grounds. Do not tell me the location of where you are moving, just move to a simple place. Also, for the sake of simplicity, do not go up a tree, okay? Wait until I go underground for this. Naruto nodded and watched Ebisu tunnel underground again. As quietly and quickly as he could, he moved to a location and stood. It was a place close to a small patch of flowers in the training field, near a large gray boulder. Naruto waited patiently, before he was greeted with an Ebisu sensei that appeared in front of him. Naruto looked spooked again, surprised the man was able to find him with no effort at all. How the heck did you do that? The technique has a secondary effect. It can sense the magnetic fields and give me not only a clue where I am at, but what's happening on the surface, and where you are at. Quote. Holy crap. That's awesome. Indeed. Ebisu nodded. This technique takes no sort of hand seals to do, simply knowing how to control your chakra consistently. I will show you the technique I used before to create the hole I used to burrow underground with, and then I shall show you how to use the Mogaragakure no Jutsu itself. Naruto smirked. Let's do this. Okay. First, seed your chakra to the ground, and let it seep through. Try to use your feet for this exercise. Then, push your chakra through the ground and soften the dirt enough so you can seep through it. Use enough chakra to make a difference in a dirt, but do not use a great amount of chakra to make a huge hole. Only make so much so you can make a hole big enough to allow you through. This technique is only as useful as it used stealthily. Otherwise, you are a sitting duck. We shall work on this technique first before we go on and do the Mogaragakure no Jutsu. And work on it. They did. An hour in, and Naruto, thanks to the help with 3 shadow clones on the side, figured out the secret of creating a hole with his chakra. After one dispelled after figuring out the answer, Naruto approached the exercise differently than he was doing. Naruto imagined making a circle with his chakra, spinning it slowly before it became a perfect 360-degree circle. Then sunk his chakra more and more into the ground, until Naruto felt himself sinking into the ground. Then, Naruto made a sizable hole for himself. Before he sunk all the way underground, and therefore had no access to hand seals, he made another clone to replace the one that dispelled before, and they followed suit and made a hole. All of them were underground in a matter of time. Ebisu nodded, and walked to the hole Naruto was in. Second, I will show you how to cover the hole. Channel your chakra into the wall of the dirt hole you create, and then move the chakra to cover the hole itself. Naruto took a bit of time to get what was instructed of him, but with experimentation from him and his clones, he gotten it, and now the light of the day was gone. He could now only hear Ebisu's voice. Man, it's dark down here, sensei. The underground usually has no candle lights to guide you, Naruto-kun. Came the deadpan response from Naruto's teacher. Now, we shall work on the Mogaragakure no Jutsu. You shall use the magnetic fields to help you find where you are, then your clones, and then me. Channel chakra into the dirt, change it to sand, and spread it around where you are, then when you get it, move. Naruto nodded to himself, before closing his eyes in concentration. Since he didn't have enough room to raise a hand, he should have made a large hole, he lamented to himself he would have to use his body itself to place chakra to the dirt wall in front of him, and that was a little more harder than simply using his hands. His hands was the most used place of concentrating his chakra after all. Nevertheless, Naruto gotten it down, and with his teacher's instruction, moved slightly in the sand, turned dirt and dug with his hands and feet. Okay, where are you? Ebisu yelled. It was probably the only way Naruto could hear him. Naruto definitely couldn't see him. Naruto kept his eyes closed, and focused on sensing above the earth's surface. I am by a tree with a long cut-in, sensei. A few steps in front of me. Naruto yelled back. Where are your clones? One clone's in the front of the forest tree I was talking about, directly in front of me. Another clone is more to my left, nearby a stream of water, and the last clone is nearby the entrance of the training grounds, sensei, in back of me. Ebisu then yelled again, and where am I? Naruto concentrated again for a brief moment. You're by a big boulder, a few meters to my right, sensei. Excellent. Naruto, you and your clones dig back above ground. Yes, sensei, Datbeo. The original Naruto started digging diagonally up, and pushed through, until he was completely vertical, and felt the earth above him soften, so he can climb out. Naruto stopped channeling chakra into any part of his body, lest he sink again, and looked at his clones. The two nearby him raced over by him, and grinned triumphantly, while he did the same. The clone the most far out, by the entrance of the large training grounds dispelled, and Naruto was fed its memories. Splendid job, Naruto-kun. A little more work with the technique, and I am sure you will find it very useful in the exams to come. Naruto grinned. It's cool. I think I'm going to like this. Yeah, a combination with his clone, and he could see everything on the battlefield, both on ground and under it. Best thing was none of his opponents wouldn't have any sort of idea. The element of surprise was a powerful tool indeed. So, what next, sensei? You know, after I mess with this technique a little bit more. What is next? We have made excellent time in the short time of 2 weeks. You have worked on your chakra control quite a bit, learned how to walk on water, learned how the basics of molding earth chakra, the basics of chakra flow into items, and learned an earth ninjutsu. So, the next step will be to relax for today. Ebisu secretly enjoyed Naruto's following reaction. The boy tripped on something in the air, and planted his face into the ground. Wait, what? Naruto yelled from the ground. I say we can take a small break from all of this, Naruto-kun. Especially today. It's not even lunchtime, and you have done what I had planned you to practice all day. Good job. So wait, what am I supposed to do then? I wanna learn more. Naruto started picking himself off the ground. There's nothing you're willing to teach me today. Nothing at all. Ebisu chuckled, looking over at Naruto's defiant stare. I did not say you could not learn something today, just not from me. We have been training straight for several days, from sun up, to the evening itself. Honestly, my teaching energies are drained. Naruto had a feeling that was a lie. It's almost lunch anyway, if you had not noticed, Naruto-kun. Go eat something, maybe practice on your own, or better yet, go do something else for the day. Have you ever went to the library like I asked almost a week ago? Naruto grunted, admitting, no, sensei. Then maybe it's time to brush up a little on your knowledge of the Byakugan. Naruto wanted to growl at his teacher, but it came out more like a whine. Fine. Ta-ta, Naruto-kun. Ebisu then disappeared in instantaneous movement, a sign of the Shunshin no Jutsu. The common way a Jonin liked to run away from a person. Naruto sighed dejectedly, and picked up his belongings. At the moment, his stomach did growl at him, and Naruto knew the man caught him good. Lunch at Ramen Ichiraku again. There were 3 main libraries in Konohagakure. The first other one was the Konohagakure Archive Library, which a place had information on people of the village. The archive library stored profiles, documented history of past and current shinobi of the village, had sections dedicated to missing nin of the world that once belonged to Konohagakure, a station where they could pick up bingo books, books that contained information on blacklisted ninja whether or not they were rogue shinobi, and information about several factions, minor civilian villages, countries, and hidden villages inside and outside Hai no Kuni. The library was built inside the Hokage Rock Monument Mountain, high and tucked away. Naruto never been there, but maybe it would come in handy when he went up in rank. Besides, he doubted he even had clearance to go up there. The second one was the more standard one, the Konoha Civilian Library or simply the Konoha Library. It was a library open to the general public of Konoha. Centrally located in the heart of the village, the business section, general information involving simple books like how to cook, or advanced books involving mathematics, medicine and health, economy, history, or other subjects belonged in this library. Generally, the library was visited mostly by civilians, but some shinobi, especially ones who were studying medicine and becoming the village's top doctors, visited the place. Naruto visited the library a few times in his life, but not very much. Besides learning how to cook on his own, and along other basic things that were good for anyone to know, Naruto felt he didn't need to go there. The final one was one Naruto felt he would be visiting more and more in the near future. The Konohagakure Shinobi Library was a tall library only allowed to shinobi of Konohagakure. No civilians was allowed in, neither were trainees in the academy or anyone without the right clearance. The reason? Because there was many things pertaining to shinobi, like how to use elemental chakra, inside that could potentially be dangerous to regular villagers. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, fuinjutsu, if it was a ninja art, you would find it in this place. Naruto headed over to the Konohagakure Shinobi Library after his lunch. Naruto had to tell the people at the front desk of his registration number and show them his ID card. It had been his first time in the library, and they gave him an ID card so he can further go inside and access the library's books without showing them his card every time. They also mentioned the card also upgraded when he rose up in ranks in the Konohagakure ninja force. Without their ID, Naruto would have to present his regular ID every time, and sometimes, Naruto didn't carry around the card in his village. He felt no need. The card was free, so Naruto saw no reason not to get it. Naruto was greeted by a librarian, some brunette female clerk, at the front desk. She told him the general rules of the library in a bored tone, droning on as if she said this exact same speech every day working here to the newbies of the library. You can access the library for as long as you can, so as long as we're open. We are open from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. from Monday-Friday. The weekends, we are closed. Due to your status as a genin, you are allowed on the first floor of the library. Do not go to the second or third floor of the library, those are reserved to chunin and jonin level shinobi. If you are found up there, you will be banned for the library for at least 6 months on your first offense. Second offense will cost you a year, and a sizable fine. Third offense, you will no longer be allowed in this library. Do you understand? Naruto had really focused on the words, if you are found, and decided if he wanted to learn some elemental ninjutsu that were of a higher tier, he would have to sneak up there one day. Naruto nodded yes nevertheless to the girl's question, and she nodded herself. Then, she shooing him away, and going back to her work, reading some sort of orange book. He knew what it was and he had half a mind to tell her why in the hell was she reading that pervy book, Ika Ika, when she should probably be working on other things, but Naruto let it go. Naruto rolled his eyes at the action, and went about his merry way, going deeper into the library, though Naruto was in no real hurry. Books and him never really clicked. He hated reading, writing, and anything pertaining to a book. Still, the place had its uses, and since it housed information about techniques ranging from all ranks, it was useful. However, since he was a genin, that gave him access to low-rank techniques. Normal genin didn't have access to A or B rank techniques right off the back or couldn't perform them because of the lack of chakra, knowledge, or experience with them. Technically speaking, he wasn't supposed to know a technique like the Kage Bunshin anyway, since the technique in its Kinjutsu variant was in the Scroll of Seals, the scroll he stole that night when he failed the graduation exam out of his academy. However, since he had already astounding chakra levels, he could use his favorite ninjutsu effectively. Even more than that, learning elemental ninjutsu like Earth Release was an art most genin his age didn't even dabble into, focusing on learning advanced chakra control exercises instead. If he wanted to learn more stuff, he probably would have to learn it somewhere else, like his teacher. However, all of that wasn't his intention today. The place wasn't just a place that had info about normal techniques. It had information about Kekai Genkai, and more importantly, it housed information about dojutsu such as the Byakugan. That was his mission: find more about the Byakugan his opponent would be wielding. Naruto wandered and wandered, looking up the B section of the first floor of the library, and moved his eyes from many books. Spelling out Byakugan in his head, he's seen several books, first starting with Byakugan as its title. He started humming a jaunty tune, taking his time trying to find the book as he's seen others either walk past him from outside the aisles. Finding the book, Byakugan, the all-seeing eye, and taking it off the shelf, Naruto scrubbed the book once of some dust, before move out of the aisle. Doing that got him to run into someone he knew. Naruto, you're here. Naruto looked at the person and raised an eyebrow for a second. Then, he grinned. Oh, hey Shikamaru. Funny running into you, well, literally. Shikamaru didn't acknowledge the tasteless pun, and rose his own eyebrow at Naruto. What are you doing here? This is a library, usually people are here to read. And I am too. I'm looking for a book to read. I see you came here specially to just antagonize me. Naruto deadpanned. Idiot. The Nara boy lazily drawled, while rubbing the shoulder Naruto bumped into. I'm here looking for a book for Choji. Guy asked, seeing I was coming here originally to return a book. Naruto nodded, before returning to scan the books on the wall. This is my first time in here. I was looking for a book on Kekai Genkai. Bloodlines. Why are you looking for that? I have an opponent whose has a dojutsu, duh. Naruto rolled his eyes. Why wouldn't I look up a book about Kekai Genkai? The dark-haired boy next to him in the aisle shook his head at the blonde. You sure as hell pick a good time looking for something to beat Neji with, Naruto. The Chunin exam semifinals is starting in less than 2 weeks. How are you supposed to come up with anything that can counter it? Don't worry about me, Shikamaru. Naruto shot back cattily, a little annoyed at the normal lazy boy's attitude. Most of this conversation was either Shikamaru taking shots at Naruto's own abilities, or insulting his intelligence. You should just worry about your own self. Your opponent can throw freaking tornadoes at you, I suggest you learn how to dodge them. Troublesome. I'll stop teasing you, and leave you alone. Later. As Naruto saw the boy leave, an idea popped in his head. Hey, Shikamaru. Yeah, do you have some information about the Byakugan that I can use? Didn't hurt asking about it, especially when he knew the Nara boy was much smarter than he let on. Nothing I can think of. Sorry. I got to go anyway, and pick up this cookbook for Choji anyway. Wait, Naruto yelled, and got hushed by people in his aisle and some others nearby. Sorry, he called back, only to get hushed again. The boy grumbled, and with a more quieter voice, said, Dude, just help a friend out. If I had info, I would tell you about the Suna chick you got to fight in the exams. Can't you help a fellow leaf nin out? Shikamaru rolled his eyes. Don't pull the friend card, Naruto. We barely talked in the academy, let alone are friends. Naruto narrowed his blue eyes at the guy, before sighing dejectedly. Fine, I guess I'll figure it out myself. Shikamaru paused, seeing Naruto's face, before sighing in guilt. Fine, I'll tell you all I know about the darn Byakugan. Okay. Naruto's face immediately perked up, a triumphing smile on his face. Great. Thanks, Shika. Keep your voice down, loudmouth. The Nara groaned, knowing he had been conned by the sad act by Naruto. And who told you that you can call my Shika? Bah, damn. Whatever. Alright, so the Byakugan. It's a pearly white, seeing eye technique that is in the possession of all Hyuga clansmen and women. You know the basics. The dojutsu allows the user to see through solid objects, have a near 360 degrees field of vision, see through several disguising techniques, have telescopic-like range of sight, and the ability to see chakra flow. This makes these people great trackers, and strong opponents. They also are natural counters for genjutsu and several ninjutsu as well. Naruto nodded, already knowing most of this information from Ebisu-sensei. Anything else I should know? Well, if you're expecting to fight Neji using a frontal approach, then you're going to lose fast. Charging in on a Hyuga using simple taijutsu is suicide. Keep your distance, of course. That's what I would do, but I don't know if you got any techniques that are at a range. You strike me as a close-range fighter really. Naruto didn't say anything, not willing to tell or brag Shikamaru about his new Earth release technique. Even if a little part of him wanted to. Ebisu-sensei advised him not to reveal to anyone what he learned, outside them being the Hokage himself. Suppose his enemy was in the next aisle, listening in on him and Shikamaru's conversation. Neji was, after all, from the same village as them. Who knew where his opponent could be? Okay. No rushing in, and keep my distance. I figured as much. Nothing new. Your sensei told you all of this before. Seeing Shikamaru's colleague nod, the Nara sighed. So why the heck did you ask me? You might had info I didn't know. You were still useful and I confirmed what I know before. Thanks. I would tell you what I knew about that Suna chick, but... You mean Tamari? Shikamaru grunted. I know enough. She's proficient in wind release techniques. Instead of keeping my distance, I need to actually be close to her, and that's not the style of combat I specialize in. The faster I put her down, the faster I win. Maybe even take away her fan, if I can imagine. Her fan? Yeah, she uses her wind attacks using that as a medium. Take that away, and it'll make it easier to deal with her. Yeah, Naruto grinned, encouragingly. You'll kick her. She's not that tough. The ponytail shinobi raised an eyebrow at his livelier colleague. She kicked Tenten's easy, and Tenten's whole team has much more experience as shinobi than our entire graduating class. She was the strongest kunoichi in the exams that's from our village. Naruto nodded his head. I guess you're right then. She will be tough. I definitely know that. She and her siblings, especially that Gaara guy, are not normal genin. Shikamaru rubbed his shoulder, shaking out some phantom pain. As if the thought of fighting the Sunagaker kids would be painful. Naruto wasn't all too sure about that puppeteer. Kankuro he didn't really look like much, but Tamari, sure, and definitely Gaara. Gaara had no qualms about murdering people, just look at what he was going to do to Lee. Alright, I'm going to go now. I'll see you later. Stick to your studies, loudmouth. Maybe you'll find something else about the Byakugan that I don't know. Will do. And Shika. The boy once again turned around to address Naruto. Thanks again for the info, dude. We should hang some more. I'll think about that last thing. Shikamaru had a small grin on his face. Alright. Good luck in the exams, Naruto. You too. Naruto said back, watching his former classmate leave him with a wave. He then scratched his chin, and closed his eyes in thought. Talking to Shikamaru got him thinking about what would happen if he had to fight other people if he beat Neji in his first match. Let me think about who's in the tournament. Let's think for a sec. So, it's me, Neji Tem, Shikamaru, that Tamari chick, that puppet guy Kankuro, creepy guy Shino, even creepier guy Gaara, and Sasuke Tem. If I beat Neji, and Shikamaru beats Tamari, we fight, so I gotta know how to fight him. There's even a chance I have to fight that Tamari girl, which I hope not. I mean, I guess I got a strategy against her. I just got to think how I can get that darn fan away from her. This is more complicated than I thought. Then again, I could just try to fight in a few matches, show my skills, and just forfeit. Naruto shook his head, chuckling. Nah, screw that. I'm going to keep going until I can't go any further. Sasuke Tem's not going to quit, and neither am I. Days were winding down, and the month was coming to an end. In a day, Naruto would be fighting Neji. He learned a few more Earth Release ninjutsu for his teacher. However, he came to realize that his techniques were more defensive and supplementary in nature. Stuff that was more offensive, Naruto only learned 2 techniques. The first one was AC rank Earth Release technique named Doden Ishi no Ko, which uprooted hardened pieces of the earth from the ground, and dropped them down on the head of target, or targets. Supposedly, more chakra fed to the technique, and the larger the size of rocks became. Naruto hadn't tried it out, because his target when using it was Ebisu-sensei, and he was trying to get down how to plain using it anyway. The second technique was a technique he was practicing for the last few days trying to get down, Doden, Kengan no Jutsu. After applying a few hand seals, and placing his arm in the ground, Naruto encased it with hardened stone, giving him the ability to strike at his opponents with a hardened punch. It was like a gauntlet made of rock itself. Naruto could do one of his arms or both. Granted, the downside of this technique made it nigh impossible to form hand seals correctly due to the rigid form of the rocks on his limbs. His arsenal of techniques that he knew how to use without hand seals was also pretty low, so that also was a problem. Nevertheless, it was still a good technique for him, fitting his close-range style of fighting quite a bit. The best technique Naruto managed to snag was the Doden Mogaragakure no Jutsu, hands down. Hiding underground was an amazing ability, for a relatively low-ranking technique that took a very generous amount of chakra from him. It was incredibly surprising for people who didn't see it coming, and combined with his shadow clones, Naruto could completely control the flow of the battlefield most definitely. However, it wasn't offensive at all, which could be a problem for some of his potential opponents. Neji wasn't the only person Naruto had to worry about in the Chunin exams. Every other technique was not made to be offensive, but Ebisu-sensei assured him that when fighting Neji, it wouldn't matter, since the point of the battle was to make sure Neji never had the chance to touch him, and to end it relatively quickly. Although they trained on hours on end getting Naruto a little more familiar with utilizing his earth element, Naruto noticed they spent much less time focusing on strategies on beating Neji. It took him a little bit to realize that, hey, Neji isn't going to be only guy you're fighting in the Chunin exams, Dumbo. Instead, they came up with a bit of strategies for everyone Naruto could possibly fight in the exams. Neji. Take him down as quickly as you could, and disable his ability to use his chakra. If he lacked that, Neji would fall. Not to mention his clones would be key in the match, as will his new abilities in Earth Release. Tamari. Take away her fan, and fight her that way. Tamari made a showing in the last part of the exams to stay away from her opponent, giving her room to shoot off waves, and funnels of wind. As Shikamaru added when Naruto last talked to him, a big strong piece of info Shikamaru had given out was Tamari's reliance on her fan to use wind release techniques, perhaps over reliance on her fan. That could work in his favor if he somehow found a way to get her to stop using it. Kankuro. Almost the same as Tamari. If you could make sure he couldn't use his puppet, he would be just as helpless in battle. Shikamaru. Make sure you got in closely, but watch your surroundings, and do not rely heavily on using the Doden Mogaragakure no Jutsu. Sensei explained that Shikamaru could extend his shadows to great heights in complete darkness, as the hole made. In battle, Naruto will be quite hard-pressed to cover up the holes he made when he used the Doden Mogaragakure no Jutsu. If Shikamaru could see where Naruto was tunneling at, extended his shadow to the hole, he could completely immobilize Naruto underground. Instead, Naruto had to make sure he got a good hit on Shikamaru and put him down for the count. Using shadow clones without hand seals might also be a good thing for him should he get pinned down by the Nara's shadow hold technique. Shino. Fight him and overwhelm him with sheer stamina. Shino could immobilize his opponents using his bugs to drain his chakra. However, those bugs could absorb only so much, and Shino could summon only so much. Shino, like Tamari, Kankuro, and Shikamaru, liked fighting at a distance, so he needed to get in and fight him. Unlike them, however, Ebisu-sensei insisted that he didn't to worry about Shino restricting his movements because Naruto had too much chakra to absorb. Sasuke. Knock him out quickly. Ebisu-sensei had based Sasuke's skills as a prior showing at the Chunin exams preliminaries as he excelled in close-range combat, combining his skills in taijutsu, kaiden ninjutsu, shuriken jutsu, and his bloodline, the Sharingan, which worked on predicting body movements of the opponent. The strategy for fighting Sasuke was still in the process of being constructed. Sasuke definitely gotten stronger in the month where he was being focused on by Kakashi-sensei. Ebisu-sensei stated Naruto would have to get more information about Sasuke when Naruto watched him in battle against Gaara. However, there was a big thing Naruto caught on about that one. Ebisu-sensei spoke in a tone that Naruto didn't have to worry too much about Sasuke. However, it wasn't because Ebisu sounded confident in Naruto being able to defeat his teammate rival. It was because Ebisu sounded like Sasuke was going to lose to Gaara from the jump. Every time he mentioned a scenario where it would be him versus Sasuke in the exams, he would start by saying, if Sasuke made it that far in the tournament. It was a very little detail that Naruto caught on, especially when Naruto asked a few times about fighting Sasuke. So, what? That meant Gaara was stronger than Sasuke? No way. Now, granted, Gaara was strong, definitely. The redhead from Sunagakur managed to defeat Rock Lee, one of the strongest and fastest taijutsu users he have ever seen, in the exams. Full out, Rock Lee had been faster than that bastard Neji, the Mutt Kiba, and Sasuke Tem, who were already fast in their own right. Rock Lee had proven that so as long as the person was fast enough, they could get past Gaara's supposed, absolute defense. However, Gaara's mighty defense and sand kinetic abilities proved to get the best out of Rock Lee in the end, and ended up almost killing Lee in the end, with the boy still recovering in the hospital. Even after being hit by Lee in that devastating taijutsu attack, even after Lee thrashing his around several times, Gaara had still came up on top, and was still in the tournament. Which lead to the final possible match-up in the tournament, Naruto versus Gaara. Ebisu had stated quite simply to him, if you cannot find a way to get past his sand, forfeit the match. Which prompted Naruto to, when told that initially, to get slightly annoyed. Ebisu-sensei then calmly shook his head and explained to him afterward. Gaara's sand prevents him from getting hurt from anything, even when he himself does not see the attack coming. It almost thinks on its own. Gaara's main method of attack is to capture his opponents in his sand, and then crush them. Close-range combat is out of this one, and you lack anything sort of mid-range or long-range attack. He also can use his sand to create attacks for all ranges as well. Your earth ninjutsu cannot do much to him. You must understand that fighting him will do you no good, Naruto. If you want to become a Chunin, you must remember that sometimes it is better to retreat when you know you cannot win, to survive another day. And after calming down, and mulling it over, Ebisu was right on all accounts. Gaara could defeat one of the most strongest genin in Konohagakure he's come to know in the past month, Rock Lee. Lee was also the fastest one as well. Naruto and Ebisu worked on his ninjutsu, some of his taijutsu, and mostly on his chakra control in these weeks. Hell, they even spent a few days working on hand seal speed because Ebisu personally found Naruto's speed with hand seals to be almost insulting. Speed was a little different, and it took a while to refine that. Yes, Naruto felt a little faster in his time of training with Ebisu, especially when they sparred, but Naruto was far from the level of Rock Lee, and was still behind Neji and Sasuke in terms of speed as well. So Naruto decided that it was the right call to forfeit in case he didn't find a way to defeat Gaara, so he could avoid getting hurt. However, that didn't mean Naruto wouldn't try. He would try, because there was no way he would give up so easily against that guy. That just wasn't his style, Datbeo. Still though, Naruto had hopes in his teammate, Sasuke, to kick Gaara's, and defeat him before Naruto had to worry about the Sunanin. He had more hope in Sasuke than Ebisu-sensei, definitely. Besides all the mulling over the Chunin exams, Naruto found himself having the training sessions every day last less and less. Ebisu-sensei stated that Naruto had been taught everything the Tokubetsu Jonin wanted to teach him this month. All that was left to do was further refining of the techniques Naruto had been given, and some more small things like working on Naruto's hand seals. Everything else Naruto personally wanted was to be done on his own time. So training lasted from approximately 7 a.m. to 1:00 p.m., before Ebisu left out to enjoy his day and telling Naruto to enjoy his. Today, for at least 1 hour, Naruto had trained for a bit on his own in a public training grounds. However, he found himself not doing much, except a bit exercise practicing his earth chakra, and applying earth chakra to a few of his weaponry. Other than that, Naruto hadn't done much, nor accomplished any sort of new feat. Disappointed a bit, Naruto found himself, instead of training, wandering back to the village, slowly trekking out the training grounds. It looked like there wasn't much else to do today. Naruto did what he usually did when he was bored. He wandered the village, looking for stuff to do. Naruto found himself in a shop. A little thing that was mostly out of the way from the usual places in the shopping district of Konohagakure. Frankly, not too crazy of a place, but that was fine with him. Usually, the big stores had people that were far from likable for his taste. The usual stink on how he was a demon child, this, and bad kid, that. Before, years ago, that would have affected him, but now, it was like an annoying little thing that kept bother him. The guy behind the clerk's counter, a tall man with a black, scruffy beard and not much hair on his head, didn't shoot him a glare at all, and nodded towards him, but other than that, didn't say or do anything that showed how he felt. Naruto thought it was refreshing nonetheless, and nodded back. The shop didn't specialize in selling ninja weaponry, so you wouldn't find kunai, shuriken, swords, exploding tags, sealing paper, etc. Instead, it simply was for ninja attire. You would find bandages, scarves, pants, t-shirts, sandals of different colors, and even different colored forehead protectors. The protectors were situated behind where the cashier and his register was at. Of course, this store only sold those protectors to people who were ninjas. Best way to show you were a shinobi was wearing your own standard blue forehead protector the academy gave you. They had jackets too, ninja-style GI in colors of white, navy blue, dark red, and black, fishnet shirts, and vests. They had a lot of stuff on racks that Naruto could spend hours looking through, and he was no fashionista. He just liked shit he liked. Looking at all had an effect on Naruto. The genin took a second to inspect his own jacket and pants, and found his favorite combination of orange and blue had a lot of wear and tear upon it. Holes, shallow cuts and slashes painted his orange-blue jacket all around, and his pants were almost no different. All of them came from older missions, especially from the mission back in Nami no Kuni, and the fighting in the first half of the Chunin exams. Pretty soon, he would have to get rid of his jacket anyway. He could see some of the inner cotton come out, which saddened him a little. He got the jacket as a gift to himself when he turned 11, and had it ever since. He quite loved the jacket, despite people disliking it. Not like he gave a what they thought anyway. Naruto shrugged. Who knows? Maybe I'll find something like my current jacket here. So Naruto decided to shop for things orange and blue. Fortunately, he found some blue. Unfortunately, there was little to nothing that was orange, and all of them were t-shirts and stuff like that. He was looking for a jacket that was like his. If it was an exact copy, he would be even happier with it. The more time progressed, he didn't see anything like his jacket. There was a whole lot of blue, dark green, and black however. Some of them, he admitted, looked good, but he was determined to find something with orange on it, something. Naruto took so long finding things, the clerk from behind the desk came by, and asked him if he needed some help. Naruto drew a breath he was holding in. Do you guys have orange-colored jackets like the one I have on? The clerk started with, scratching his scruffy chin. To be honest, kid, not many ninjas these days rock orange at all. Not exactly the most inconspicuous color, if I say myself. I doubt you're going to find anything orange in this shop. Ah, I see. Naruto trailed off, thinking about leaving the store. Then again, he was checking the prices on the jackets and clothing he's seen, and the prices were looking nice. He already still had some pay left from the A-rank mission in Nami no Kuni still, and the D ranks his team took on a little bit afterward. But, I think you should keep looking. You might find something with orange on it, just not a jacket primary orange though. If anything, we do have red jackets. That's the most closest thing to orange I can think of. The clerk shrugged. Naruto nodded, noting that in his head. Thanks, I'll check around. The guy gave Naruto a friendly smile, before returning back to his place in the store, behind the cash register. Naruto meanwhile decided that he might not be able to find orange here, so maybe he should look for other colors. He liked black, and blue, wasn't against red, green, or white, and hated anything that looked girly. In his mind, he figured purple, yellow, and pink to be the girly colors. Like any 13-year-old boy, he wanted to look cool. He found something closely resembling his orange and blue jacket. A red jacket with black on the shoulder parts, but no white tassels or collar. It was even missing the red swirl that he liked strangely on the things he usually brought. Still, it closely resembled his current jacket, and since he didn't see anything orange at all at this point, his options were limited. Just as he was reaching for the red jacket, he saw something else, and dropped it altogether. It was a mostly black jacket, with a dark orange collar. Its orange collar then connected to an orange middle, and the bottom of the jacket was orange also. On the left shoulder, a red swirl that he always associated with Konoha stood pronounced, and it reminded him a lot of the red swirl crest that was on his current jacket. Out of curiosity, he inspected the jacket some more, and found the jacket's inner lining was orange, and was delighted to see so. The jacket was a 3-in-1 combination, because it also came with a set of fingerless black gloves, and matching pants that had an orange inner lining like the jacket. He imagined himself with the jacket on, folding up the sleeves of the jacket, and the bottom of the pants, and he would have that dash of orange like he wanted it. It would be perfect. Taking the jacket with him to a fitting room nearby, he discarded his beat-up orange jacket, and took off the orange pants he had on, and put on the black ones. He liked it a lot, enjoying how it felt on him. The orange jacket was a lot bulkier than the black one, as the black one was more tailored to his actual size, and hugged him better. The black gloves were cool too, and if he didn't want to put them on, he could always leave them at home somewhere. However, he was feeling with all this black on, his forehead protector and sandals, both blue, was looking out of place. Time for a new pair of sandals and a protector then. Naruto commented to himself with a smile. He quickly took off the new jacket and pants, and put back on the clothing he came in the store with. He left the room, walked to the shoes section, and grabbed himself a pair of black sandals in his size. Naruto approached the counter where the clerk was. Excuse me, but can I get a black forehead protector from in back of you? Sure. Finally got a style you like, huh, kid? The clerk grabbed 2 forehead protectors for Naruto to choose from. Now, a short style bandana, medium, or long? Long. Naruto was liking how the long one looked. The clerk nodded, and put the protector of Naruto's choice onto of the jacket and pants. Anything else? Naruto shook his head. I'm good. How much? After paying, Naruto decided that he was going to wear his new clothing outside, and return to the fitting room. Placing the old jacket, pants, forehead protector, and sandals into the bag his new clothing was supposed to be inside, he left the shop feeling good. The day of the Chunin exams. The crowd was alive, shouting for matches to come. Hundreds, maybe even thousands, of people were here, filling the stadium from all sides. Naruto, dressed in his new outfit, felt a little nervous. So many people's eyes were on him today, so many would be judging. It was at that moment he knew that he would either do himself and everyone he knew proud, or prove that he still was the weakest genin in the group. For years, he had been mocked and vilified by his own classmates, most of the people he would call friends, because of his grades, and slacking off in school. But it had been just about half of a year since then now. Things changed, and so did he. They didn't know about what he went through to get here, the hardships he faced to just do so. 1 month to shape up, or lose in the first round. He wouldn't be losing to anyone today. He counted on it. He would not only be doing this to shut Neji up, and avenge Hinata, but to avenge his own self. He was out here, to prove that he improved, and he was worthy of respect. So, come Neji, come Temari, Shikamaru, Sasuke, Gaara, or anyone else he had to fight. Naruto Uzumaki would beat them all the same. The contestants all were down here, allowing the crowd to see them. Naruto stood nearby his opponent, Neji, and even here, he could feel his blood boil for this guy. He was the same type of asshole that needed a good to show him the way. Naruto should know, of course, because he was once that type of asshole. However, training with Ebisu-sensei opened up Naruto's eyes quite a bit. Naruto had much to learn, so much so. He had no more time to act like a kid to do anything of that. He had to grow up, and become that legendary shinobi he saw in his dreams. Naruto could barely hear the proctor call his name, as the rest of the contestants are no longer in the arena. Neji and him separate. He's on one side and Naruto is on the other. Neji is already in his family's fighting style, while Naruto moves to a more looser stance. He remembered what he had to do, and it didn't involve thinking he was going to fight Neji head-on. For what seemed like a while of just staring at each other, Neji was the first to say something. "That's a nice, newer outfit than the clown outfit you had on last month, Uzumaki. You should have not bought it, it's just only going to end up ripped and tattered." Naruto snorted. "Like you're going to be able to touch me, guy. I assure you, it won't be hard. I know how much of a loser you really are. You're a slacker who barely graduated from his class, who won against his opponent by farting in his face. How you've gotten here was based on sheer luck, nothing more. For people like you, or Hinata, or anyone who hasn't been born into the greatness, there's only one place you'll be, in second. It is your fate to be so." For a second, Naruto felt rage into his body. How dare this self-absorbed, senseless prick, who spewed nothing but that fate shit out his mouth, talk about his cousin like that. He was used to people talking shit about him, but not people like Hinata. She didn't deserve that at all, or the beating Neji gave her last month. For a second, Naruto was about to shout back and answer in anger, let his rage get the best of him. However, he took a second to let the words settle in. After a bit, he realized what this was. Neji tried this before against Hinata, and he saw right through it. Neji was one of those guys who had to hurl insults at people just to make them more sloppier. He liked to discourage, or anger people, and then when they made a mistake, Neji would swoop in, and beat them. It almost worked on Hinata, had Naruto not told her to stand up, and although she lost, she fought harder to prove him wrong. Naruto had seen the fire in that girl's pearl eyes, and it spoke something to Naruto. Hinata was a lot like Naruto. Both were mocked and teased because of their ways. Hinata was the meek, shy kid, and Naruto was the loudmouth who didn't seem to stop getting in trouble. People like Neji liked picking on them because they seemed like easy targets, and had their own heads shoved so far up there, that the shit fumes started confusing them, and they started believing in the crap they were spewing. They thought they were superior, unbeatable. But they were far from it. They were just bullies, and bullies wouldn't stop bothering their victims, until their victims stood up, and knocked their lights out. Naruto would do so, shape this anger he felt inside into energy he could use to show the world he was no longer that dumb kid from 6 months ago, who relied too much on luck, and less on actual skill. Neji had planned for this. To come in battle, nose high, sneer deep, teeth bared. A few insulting words would aid him, their purpose to make Naruto get worked up, and to make the Uzumaki make a few slip-ups to make him lose the match faster. Naruto knew really what Neji was pulling. Mind games, and Naruto would not being playing it. So you came to talk down on me, or actually fight me? How long have you been out the academy? A year and some change, and you're still on that kid shit. You best worry about fighting me serious, Neji. I heard all that stuff all before. Prodigy or not, Neji was not leaving here without a knot knocked upside his head. Neji just smirked at the Uzumaki, and wordlessly activated his clan's dojutsu, the Byakugan. The proctor had gave his consent to start the match, and already Naruto had started the plan. His hands went up to use his favorite technique, the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Neji had seen the move, and was waiting for them to be summoned. Much to his surprise, he saw nothing, and Naruto put his hands down. Neji had seen the surge of chakra inside Naruto's body, but seen nothing at all. Something did not sit well in Neji's stomach, he kept his guard up. Next thing he knows, he's barely blocking a strike from his left from his blonde-haired opponent. Neji didn't take time wondering how the hell did the Uzumaki manage to make a shadow clone without him know, and instead attempted to counter, slamming a palm into the clone's head. The clone went up in smoke, blowing away from Neji. The Hyuga smirked over at the Naruto original who kept standing there. It was a foolish attempt to. He didn't finish his sentence when he saw rocks raining down from above his head. Neji moved to the side, and dodged 5 large rocks dropping into the space he once occupied. They were large enough to almost boulders. Again, he had not seen his opponent do so, which he found strange. Was this a technique Uzumaki could use without hand seals, or was he fast enough to be seen? And he noticed that it was stones, so that meant an affinity with earth. Interesting. Then, he watched as 4 clones approached him, running swiftly to him with kunai in their hands. Neji waited for them, and swiftly defeating them without much of a sweat. He couldn't help but to snort derisively at this. This is your plan, Naruto. To throw clone after me. Why don't you try something else? All you're doing is wasting time. Neji, however, could not reach fast enough to Naruto's next attack as a clone, or the real Naruto himself, jumped out of the ground with a fist, uppercutting him in his chin. Neji heard the crunch in his chin, and he wailed in pain as he flew back. He then saw 4 other Narutos jump out the earth itself and slam their knees into his stomach. The Hyuga boy wheezed in pain. He hits just as hard as Lee. He felt all of the clones hold his extremities, as he attempted to move, but it was in vain. Naruto appeared at Neji's head, and peered down at him. The blonde looked into the Hyuga's eyes, and asked, "Didn't I tell you to take me seriously?" At that comment, the 4 Naruto clones started attacking Neji, slamming their fists into his face. The Hyuga wailed in pain, trying to squirm away from them, but find it impossible. The real Naruto, who stood over Neji, looked impassively at him. My clones have glued themselves to the ground. You're not going to be moving anytime soon. We will see about that. Neji growled, maybe you should take me seriously. And then the clones were blown back by an invisible wave of chakra. The clones flew and exploded into clouds of white smoke, popping when they hit the ground. It was an experimental technique Neji had been working on for the past month. Much like he knew his clan had the ability to expel chakra from their tenketsu, Neji learned the ability didn't stop at their hands or feet. His opponent had been so busy talking and giving him a scary look that he didn't even guard himself. He saw the Jukin before, and knew they could use their hands to expel chakra, but the idiot didn't count on him being able to expel them. Neji had relished in the surprised look Naruto had gave him, before jumping back to his feet and speeding off to the now retreating Naruto. He closed the distance easily and slammed a powerful palm into his chest, spreading chakra through him to damage his internal organs. That would be enough to stop Naruto, he was sure. Much to his anger, however, he hit nothing but a clone, and watched it explode into smoke. He growled, wondering where the hell was the real Naruto while holding his now burning jaw. Now, things were to be taken seriously, and Neji had little use for taunting the boy now. Not only was it not working like he wanted to, but he had almost lost to the urchin. I swear he's not getting the drop on me again. Neji was feeling paranoia settle in, as he scanned the field for Naruto Uzumaki. So far, his opponent had eluded him, and has been sending clone after clone to him, never attacking him head-on himself. Much to Neji's horror, he couldn't tell which Naruto was the real one. Each one of the clones, he had some time peering into their chakra systems with his Byakugan, had exactly the same amount of chakra, and the Naruto that was standing in front of him before had the exact same amount of chakra that they had. His Kekai Genkai would do nothing to help him here, except anticipate where they were coming. But he wondered something more horribly as a thought came on. Those clones, they came out of the ground, and he has already shown his earth affinity. What if he has the ability to travel underground? That made sense to him, as he legitimately did not see the clone from the underground who popped him once in the chin coming. His eyes couldn't do much to help him. He couldn't scan the entire battlefield's grounds, even if the Byakugan could see through it. His opponent could be hiding anywhere. Another horrifying thought came to his head, and he wondered if Naruto could track him as well. Another thing that made sense, because Naruto's clone knew exactly where he was, and where to strike his chin. If that was the case, then that would make things more complicated and more a problem to deal with. He didn't know how many clones Naruto could make, but he seen how much chakra the guy had, and it astounded him. The Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was not like the normal Bunshin no Jutsu where it made incorporeal, immovable clones that served as a distracting illusion, instead of an actual attack. These clones were solid, could move, could attack, and could act for themselves without any sort of interference. Plus, they were an exact copy of their creators, down to their chakra levels. That could not take a small amount of chakra to make, at all. That meant, Naruto could have several clones who, if his theory was correct, travel underground while tracking his opponent, and never have to show up to actually fight. Neji couldn't help but sober up. His once superior attitude towards the Uzumaki had dried up, and he was feeling some sort of fear well up inside of him. Neji did not have a lot of tools to help him in this match, and he doubted he could outlast his opponent. All he could really do was wait until Naruto came in, and approached him, which was looking like more and more of a dumb idea to do, and his blonde-haired opponent was proving to be less and less dumb than he looked. Neji, for the first time in life in battle, didn't know what he could do to win. Which meant something he had only one option left. Neji sighed, swallowed his pride, and held a hand up. Shiranui-san, he started addressing the proctor who was looking coolly in his direction, I forf. But before Neji could finish those words, he yelped as he was dragged underground by a pair of hands, his head being the only thing above the dirt. Naruto's black sandals came into picture, and Neji watched a fist made of rock fly to his face. Darkness followed for Neji only after that. Naruto walked back, feeling strange as he walked back up to the fighter's booth, listening to the crowd's loud cheering but barely registering it. That match was disappointing, was the word for it, he supposed. Neji had really never been able to touch him at all in that fight. Like, really. Sure, he got his clones, but that was only because Naruto had allowed him to do so. Even when he thought he caught Neji before, all it took was switching with an underground clone, which he had created since the beginning of the match, with Kawirami no Jutsu, and Neji was none the wiser. Then after the clone had been killed, Neji stood there, like a sitting duck. Naruto scratched his head. Victory was his, but Neji hadn't even put up much of a fight for him, surprisingly. Maybe all that worry about him for the past month was all for nothing, Ah well, he was sure he'd done pretty well enough to impress the judges, Naruto was sure, and even if he didn't, he was going to the next round against whoever won the next fight. Naruto was sure he would be getting a newer match to show off some more of his skills. That, he could count on.